In the late 1990s, two brothers were working from a bedroom in their parents' house. They decided to build a fun little online game. They had no idea their small project would become a huge success. It would bring in millions of players from all over the world. It would also force them to fight to keep their game world from breaking. This is the story of a game that would not give up. It's a story about passion, community, and some very big mistakes. It is also about a comeback that changed how players and game makers work together forever. This is the entire history of RuneScape. Before RuneScape, there was a game called Devious Mud. Back in 1998, a young programmer named Andrew Gower started it as a project he worked on by himself in his childhood bedroom. Back then, the internet was a very different place. Online games were mostly games made of text, called multi-user dungeons, or MUDs. But Andrew wanted to build something more. He wanted to make a MUD with pictures, a world you could see, not just read about. His first try was a clumsy game with a tilted view that only he ever played, but it showed that the idea worked. It was a one-man project, and he was powered by his love for it. In 1999, he remade the whole thing from the start, kept the name Devious Mud, and let the public play it for just 1 week. It ran on his personal computer. It had a couple of shops, a few items, and only one unfinished quest, Sheep Shearer. It is believed that only about 15 people ever played it. In October of 1999, Andrew decided to start over one last time, but he was not going to do it alone. He brought in his brothers, Paul and Ian. The three of them got rid of Devious Mud completely and started building something new and much bigger. They decided to call it RuneScape. The Gower brothers were not just coders, they were world builders. They filled their game with a fun, very British sense of humor. They wrote quests that were not always about killing dragons. They were about helping a cook bake a cake or finding things for a witch's potion. They built a world that was not too serious, and that charm became one of the game's most loved parts. Their biggest clever technical trick was the programming language they chose, Java. At a time when most games had to be downloaded and put on a computer from a CD, RuneScape could be played right in your web browser. This was a big change. It meant almost anyone could play. All you needed was an internet connection. On January 4th, 2001, RuneScape was released as a free test version. It had 6 quests and 12 skills. The reaction was fast and huge. The news spread very fast through school computer labs and internet forums. It was free, it was easy to start, and it was just plain fun. In just 1 year, more than 1 million free accounts were made. The Gower brothers had a huge hit, but it was growing way too fast for them to handle from their parents' house. The game was first paid for by ads, but then the internet business boom ended, and that money went away. They were facing a big problem. The servers cost money, making the game was a full-time job, and the project could not keep going. They needed a real business plan, and they needed help. That's when Constant Tedder walked in. In 2001, Tedder, a businessman, met Andrew Gower. Andrew showed him a very early version of the game. Even with the simple graphics, Tedder saw the amazing potential and felt how addictive the game was. In December 2001, the Gower brothers and Constant Tedder officially formed a company called Jagex, with Tedder as the leader of the company. His job was to handle the business side, which let the Gowers focus on what they did best, which was making the game. The new company's first big move was a big risk. On February 27, 2002, Jagex launched a monthly membership payment. For a small fee, players got access to new areas, skills like herblore, and a lot of new quests. This was a moment that would either make them or break them. Would players who were used to a free game be willing to pay? The answer was a huge yes. In the very first week, 5,000 players signed up, making RuneScape one of the biggest pay-to-play Java games in the world. The new money let Jagex grow. They hired their first real employees and finally moved out of the Gower's bedroom and into a real office. By the end of 2003, Jagex had 29 employees and over 65,000 paying members. The Little Bedroom project had become a real company, but it was also getting too big for its own good. The simple 2D engine that had been a big change was now holding it back. The game, now known as RuneScape Classic, was hitting a wall. To keep going, it had to be born again. And by 2003, RuneScape became so popular, it started having problems. The game engine Andrew Gower had built was struggling to handle hundreds of thousands of players. The graphics looked old, the code was messy, and adding cool new features was becoming almost impossible. Jagex had a huge choice to make: keep trying to fix a broken system or take a big risk and remake the entire game from the start. And so they chose to remake it. And when I say remake, I mean it. On December 1st, 2003, Jagex launched a test for what they called RuneScape 2. For months, members got to test out this brand new world, and the difference was huge. The old 2D pictures that just slid across the screen were gone. Instead, there were full 3D character models that moved smoothly. The world was more colorful and detailed, the screen was cleaner, and quests felt more like a movie. On March 29, 2004, RuneScape 2 was officially released to everyone, and the original game was renamed RuneScape Classic. This was the version that a whole group of people would know as RuneScape. It kicked off what many players call its golden age. From 2004 to 2007, the number of players grew very fast. By May 2007, Jagex had over 1 million paying members and more than 6 million active free accounts. The world of Gielinor felt alive, and not just because of the new graphics, but because of the people in it. And in this time, no player was more famous than Zezima. Peter Zezima was a legend. For most of the years between 2004 and 2007, he held the #1 spot on the high scores. He was the first player to reach all kinds of amazing goals, like getting the highest level in every single skill. In the game, he was a rock star. Players would follow him around in big groups, just hoping to see the famous player himself. His fame was so huge that Jagex said he was probably the most famous player in the game's history. Zezima showed what a person could do with enough hard work, playing for over 10 hours a day for years straight. But all this growth came with some serious problems. The very things that made Runescape great, how easy it was to play, and its player-run market, also made it a huge target for bad people. Two major problems started to take over the game: botting and real-world trading, or RWT. Botting is when someone uses a program that plays the game for them. These bots could do the same tasks, like chopping wood or killing monsters, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They never got tired, and they filled the game's market with items. This made the hard work of real players feel worthless. These bot farms were often run by gold farmers. These were groups who gathered tons of in-game gold, not to play the game, but to sell it to other players for real money. This was RWT, and it was against the rules. It gave paying players an unfair edge, ruined the feeling of accomplishment, and, worst of all for Jagex, it brought a lot of credit card crime. Gold sellers would use stolen credit card numbers to buy memberships for their bot accounts. When the real card holders found out, the credit card companies would take the money back. The huge number of these became a big money problem for Jagex. Payment companies like Visa and MasterCard started seeing Jagex as a risky company to work with and began sending warnings. The fees Jagex had to pay got very high. Even worse, they were facing the very real danger of being completely cut off and unable to take any payments at all. This was a huge problem that could end the company. If Jagex could not take payments, they could not make money. If they could not make money, they could not run the servers, pay their workers, or make the game. Runescape, now played by millions, was about to fail because of a problem that was getting out of control. Jagex felt like they were playing a game they could not win. They would ban thousands of bots, and the bot makers would just find a new way to stay hidden. They were spending time and money in a race they could not seem to win. They were getting desperate, and that desperation was about to lead them to the one choice that made more people angry than any other in the game's history. It was a choice that would save the company, but nearly tear the community apart. By late 2007, Jagex was in a tough spot. The flood of credit card crime from real-world trading had pushed their payment companies to the edge. They were given a final warning: get the crime under control, or you will not be able to process payments anymore. For a company that lived on memberships, this was like a death sentence. The future of Jagex and Runescape was at risk. They felt they had no choice but to do something big, even if it meant tearing out what made the game special. On December 10, 2007, Jagex made a shocking announcement. In a now famous message, they shared that they were completely removing two of the game's most basic parts: free trade and player versus player fighting in the wilderness. It is hard to explain how big of a deal this was. Free trade was the base for how players traded and made friends in Runescape. It was the ability to give any item to any other player. It meant helping a new friend get started with some armor, letting a clanmate borrow a powerful weapon, or just making a deal in the market. It was what held the community together. Jagex replaced it with a trade limit, a system that forced all trades to be for items of about the same value. All of a sudden, you could not give your friend a gift. You could not help a new player who was struggling. You could not be generous anymore. The system made to stop gold sellers also stopped friendship. The second change was just as bad. The wilderness, the risky area where you could win big or lose big, was where all the danger and excitement happened. It was a lawless place where players could fight each other and take the loser's items. For years, this was also how gold sellers moved money. A buyer would meet a seller, the seller would let them kill them, and the buyer would take the gold. To stop this, Jagex just removed player fighting from the wilderness completely. Suddenly, the most exciting area in the game became a boring, empty place with only monsters. This caused massive protests inside the games. Feeling tricked, thousands of players gathered in the city of Falador to protest. They filled the town square, spamming the chat with angry messages. For many, this was the day the game they loved died. It is thought that Jagex lost many thousands of paying players in just a few weeks. Players started leaving in large numbers. Many left for private servers that promised to bring back the good old days. And what made people the most angry is that this didn't even work. The gold farmers just changed their ways. They found new ways to sell their gold, while regular players were stuck with these new, unfriendly rules. Jagex had hurt the good players to stop the bad ones, but the rule breakers were still there. The company was a mess. The founders, Andrew and Paul Gower, were not involved in daily work anymore, and by 2010, they had left the company completely. The passion project they had started was now a big company that did not know what it was anymore. It was being pulled in different directions by new owners and new leaders. Over the next few years, Jagex slowly took back some of the changes, but the harm was done. A deep feeling of distrust had grown between the company and its players. And that small problem was about to become a huge one. While dealing with all this, Jagex was working on an even bigger change. For years, some people inside the company had wanted to update RuneScape's fighting system. The simple click-and-wait system was famous, but they saw it as slow and boring. They thought it turned away new players who were used to MMOs with more action. They wanted the game to change and grow. The project was called The Evolution of Combat, or EOC, and it was supposed to be the game's next great step forward. It was a complete redesign of the game's main way to play. EOC threw out the simple click-and-wait system. It replaced it with a modern action bar with many different abilities and timers. It was meant to be more skillful and more fun. The leaders of the company were sure that this was the future and that players would love it, but they were very wrong. On November 20th, 2012, The Evolution of Combat went live. Players hated it right away, and it was a disaster. It made the anger from 2007 look small. To longtime players, this just was not RuneScape anymore. The fighting system they had spent years learning was gone. The whole feel of the game was broken. It felt like they were being forced to play a copy of other MMOs, the very games they had chosen not to play. Once again, players left in huge numbers. The game's population crashed. The update that was meant to bring in new players had driven away the most loyal, dedicated fans. For the second time in 5 years, Jagex had totally changed the spirit of the game without asking its players. This time, it felt like a deadly mistake. The community was broken, angry, and getting smaller fast. RuneScape was dying, but from the ruin of this disaster, a crazy idea would come up. It was an idea that would lead to the game's surprising and amazing return. The Evolution of Combat was the final straw. The RuneScape community, already hurt by the 2007 updates, was now protesting openly. The number of players was dropping fast, and the forums were just a wall of anger and sadness. A huge part of the player base felt like the game they had spent thousands of hours on was gone. It was replaced by something they did not even know. They did not want Jagex to fix EOC. They wanted to go back in time. An idea that had been talked about on fan forums started to get real support. Just bring back the old version of the game. Players missed the golden age, and they wanted the 2007 version of the game. This was before free trade was removed, and long before EOC. They wanted a time capsule. It would be like a playable museum of the game they fell in love with. At first, Jagex said no. Running 2 different versions of a giant online game sounded like a very hard and expensive problem. But players kept leaving, and their calls to bring back the old game got louder. Jagex had to make a big choice. They could either watch their game slowly die, or they could try something no big game maker had ever done. In a move that made history, Jagex let the players decide. In February 2013, they started a vote. They announced that if enough people voted for it, they would launch servers running a copy of RuneScape from August 2007. They set different vote goals, promising more support for the old game if more people voted. The community went wild. The vote smashed the first goal of 50,000 votes, then 250,000, and just kept going. The message was very clear. On February 22nd, 2013, Jagex officially launched Old School RuneScape. At first, it was a very simple service only for members. It was a picture of the game, stuck in 2007, with its problems and all. It had a very small team of developers, and its future was not certain, but for the players who rushed back, it was home. What made Old School RuneScape, or OSRS, so game-changing was not just that it was there, but how it was run. Jagex, having learned a hard lesson from EOC, promised to develop OSRS in a totally new way. The community would be in charge. This meant that they would build a voting system right into the game. Now, for any big update to pass, from a new quest to a small change in the settings, it first had to be approved by at least 75% of the players who voted. This created a special and strong connection. The developers do not just work for Jagex, they work for the players. Their job is to suggest ideas, listen to opinions, and then build what the community wants. It was the complete opposite of the previous idea. Meanwhile, the main game, now called RuneScape 3 or RS3, kept moving forward. The developers stuck with the evolution of combat, improving it over the years into a system with more to it. They added new skills like archaeology, pushed the game's story into a new time of fighting gods, and kept updating the graphics. RS3 became a modern MMO with a faster speed and tons of things to do. Old School grew in a totally different way. Led by player votes, it has gotten thousands of updates since 2013, but all of them were carefully made to match how the game looked and felt in 2007. OSRS has its own new lands, raids, and special items. But the core, click-and-wait fighting and old-style graphics are there to stay. It even has its own separate story, with quests that go in a completely different direction than RS3's. Today, the two games are there together. They share one membership, but are completely separate, with different teams, different goals, and different players. Your progress in one game does not go to the other. They are two different worlds that came from the same place. And it's funny that OSRS, the game that was never supposed to exist, has become the more popular of the two. It often has 2 to 4 times as many players online as its modern brother. This big split, which happened after years of problems, ended up saving Runescape. It let Jagex serve 2 completely different groups of players without having to give in. If you wanted a modern, fast-paced MMO, you had RS3. And if you missed the simple, community-led feel of the golden years, you had Old School. Runescape has both, and even though the company has stumbled multiple times, they always somehow manage to save it. The world of Gielinor is huge, and its history is filled with many other stories. What are your best memories from Runescape? What time did you start playing in? Share your stories in the comments below, and if you want to see more histories of your favorite games, make sure to subscribe.